Hello, this is the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. It's Thursday, March 3rd, 2022, and it's 1:30 p.m. So as a first order of business, let's do the call to order with a roll call. Linda Escobedo,
Present.
Mike Lawson,
Present.
Rich Feely,
Present.
Carrie LaFleur,
Present.
and Keith Bergman, present. All right, very good. And we have, next item is approval of minutes. There are 3 sets of minutes that I submitted for the meeting today. A couple of them are older minutes that I had just not got to before. December 13th, 2021, which was a joint meeting with the Housing Authority. December 14th, 2021, with Rich actually and his Concord Housing Foundation folks. And then our meeting from last Thursday, February 24, 2022. So is there a motion to approve those 3 sets?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Rich. Is there discussion?
The
All
only
right.
thing I would say is at some point, given the availability of the videos, we should enable you to have to be less thorough than you are. But
Well-
I do appreciate how full, how complete the minutes are.
Thank you. And what I try to do, if the video link gets posted before I have a set of minutes for us to prepare, I also put that link in our minutes. So some of them have them and some of them don't. I think I actually, the video from last Thursday is up, it's posted. So I'm able to put that link in our minutes. So that's great. So why don't we take a roll call on the motion to approve. Linda?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Rich?
With a notation that I was not present at the meeting with the Housing Authority.
So noted. And Carrie?
Aye.
And Keith, aye. All right. So those 3 sets are approved. Thanks very much. Next item is proposed interim policy guidelines for select board approval. And I'll just say I was purposeful in naming this agenda item because I wanted to discuss a point that Linda brought to my attention. We've been talking about this as a policy document, but there's a word that's not in our policy document, and it's the word policy. So it might be to our our advantage to make sure that the word policy is in the title of the document so that there's no confusion. And it goes back to the language of, and I'm sorry for not catching it as we've gone through so many iterations of this, but it goes back to the bylaw language that authorizes us to approve statements and policy documents. I'm trying to find the language, but the word policy is in what the select board gets to approve. And I thought it might be helpful or if we added that language if we added to the title, then it's what it would be referred to. And it might just underscore what this document is. How do folks think about that? Linda, did you have a?
Well, yeah, I was actually surprised when I realized the word policy wasn't there because we've been talking about it in those terms all along. And I think it would be helpful to have it.
Yeah, and we have brought, the last time we brought a document to the select board, we called it something else and they changed it to the title that they were satisfied with. So I think if we can go in with a title that's in an approvable form, I think that might be helpful. So towards that end, the way we could accomplish that is to uh, amend the title of the guidelines as approved on February 24, 2022, to read interim policy guidelines for use of funds. And if we're okay with that, then I can get the select board a final version of the document for their packets later today, which contains that update. So is there a motion to that effect? Linda, you want to make that motion?
Okay.
Okay.
I move that we change the title of the CMAHT interim policy guidelines for the select board as dated or as approved on February 24th to add the word policy in the title.
Second.
Motion by Linda, second by Mike. Is there further discussion? All right, I just want to thank Linda for catching that. And she caught it right after I sent a document out to the board last week. So I thought I was in a fix then. So I need to take another vote today, and that we'll get it to them right after. All right, so on that.
And Keith, just as a note to be in step, I changed my slide deck that's going to be presented tonight. So I may or may not be able to go back, but I'll try.
Okay, well, thanks very much. So on Linda's motion, seconded by Mike, let's do the roll call. Linda,
Aye.
Mike, Rich. Is that an
Aye.
aye? Carrie,
Aye.
Keith, aye. So that approves unanimously. Thanks very much. While we're on the subject of proposed guidelines, and I do want to get to preparing for the FinCom meeting next in our discussion on sources of funds, but on this agenda item of policy guidelines, we have a meeting with the select board on Monday night, March 7th, to go over those. And I just wanted to give the opportunity. I'm happy to carry the ball and make a presentation. But I wanted to hear some discussion on what would be the most effective means for us to go over this with the select board. They will have received the document in their packets for the meeting. Sometimes it's helpful to just give a high overview of what it is and how we got here, and then invite questions. Are there thoughts about what the most effective way of kicking this off for that discussion might be? And we have, I think, 20 to 30 minutes was, or Terry asked how much time we might need, and I thought it might be 20 to 30 minutes for presentation and Q&A following. So be happy to hear, and maybe Linda would have some coaching for us or thoughts.
Well, I think, my point of view is I can't remember now how many items are on that agenda, but they're usually pretty full. So I think if you can keep it under 10 minutes for presentation and allow for questions, I think that's more reasonable.
Linda, would the select board like a sort of preamble and introduction, or just go directly to ask for questions?
I think I'm assuming, Keith, you usually open this by referring to the bylaws require that we do X, Y, and Z. Is that what you're referring to as a preamble, Mike? Yeah, something like that I think would be helpful. Yeah,
a reminder of how do we get to this point, and by what authority are we doing, are we here and doing this? I also thought that it's useful to point out that these interim policy guidelines are interim, and by that we define what, what the long term looks like once the measures are the dedicated funding sources are passed and enacted, and that in the meantime we're operating at a lower funding level, but nevertheless want to have some guidelines during this interim period. So maybe I think that would be a helpful distinction to make.
I agree.
Well,
Yeah, and the other thing I've heard you mention several times, Keith, is talking about the process briefly, the length of time it's taken and all the stakeholders who have been involved. And I think that's helpful context.
okay.
Yeah.
Very good. We'll do that as well. Process. Great. Okay. Any other thoughts about that? All right. Very good. Well, look forward to that discussion on Monday night. The next item is sources of trust funds, and under this item we talked about real estate transfer fee, building permit surcharge legislation, use of ARPA funds, town meeting appropriations, exploring additional funding sources, and maybe to just start off, one of those options is the annual funding request from town meeting. And I was just looking at the Finance Committee's agenda for tonight. It seems to be that what they're expecting tonight are presentations on each of the money articles. And Linda, you're doing that presentation for
Article 24, I am.
okay.
And in fact, I will have referenced all these various funding sources
Okay, excellent.
that are in play one way or the other.
Great, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is there, now it's called a public hearing. I'm assuming that means that there'll be public input allowed. So that, for example, our committee has taken votes to support 3 of the articles, 24, 25, 26. And I submitted something in writing a week or more ago to the moderator, select board, FinCom chair, and others. So it's but wouldn't assume that that's at anyone's fingertips for the hearing. And is that how the FinCom hearing goes? Would there be opportunity under an article for public comment or for a committee to say that they support it? Is that how it goes?
Yes.
Because I'd like, sorry.
No, I just said yes. What they wouldn't necessarily be reviewing any correspondence that they had received, though. So, they wouldn't go, they wouldn't say we've received 5 letters in support of this article, even if they had received them. So.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think what I for the record then anyway, I think it'd be important, and I mentioned this to Lee Smith earlier today, just in a by way of updating what's happening with Assabet River Bluff, that that our committee has taken a vote in favor of Articles 25 and 26, which involve funding for that project, and we'd be happy to put that on the record for the FinCom tonight. So I'm happy to do that, and just say that much, that we're in support of those 3 articles at whatever point there we can do that. Very good. Anything else, Linda, that you want to tell us about tonight, your presentation tonight, or ways that we could be of help to you?
Well, every public hearing is handled slightly differently. And, one purpose obviously is to raise questions to improve the presentation at town meeting. it depends on what night we're having the public hearing, how much of that actually gets done. Because sometimes it moves immediately into specific questions, not so much for the presentation as trying to take positions almost.
Right, right.
So I think you've already covered generally how it works.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Is there, I'm wondering, is there on the matter of potential ARPA funding, is there any, are there any clarifications, and this could be to Carrie as well, about what the process might be by a determination is made of whether, is there any chance that our group might get ARPA funds for the coming year, or is there, I know there's no rush to spend the money legally. It's there for, a couple of more years, but it's burning a hole in our pocket though. So.
Yeah. So, Linda, I'm happy to try to respond, Linda, but I don't want to steal your thunder if you were dying to make a response here.
Well, I'll just, since we were talking about the, thank you, Carrie, since we were talking about the presentation tonight on Article 24, after talking about the sources of funding, I do note that as of this time, the town has yet not decided how they're going to allocate ARPA funds.
Is there a timeline on that decision process?
I would say there's no firm timeline, but the select board did decide to sort of divvy up the money in fourths and consider up to 25% of the total each year for the 4 years that we have available to spend the funding. So I do think, or I am hopeful that the select board before town meeting will take up consideration of ARPA funding for affordable housing, because I think we need to know that before town meeting, or it certainly would be helpful to know that before town meeting. So I do think that would happen, but it probably would not happen until April based on the agendas for this month.
But that's good. Just that sounds great. It's just so long as it's before the May town meeting that is the only deadline that we're on. So that's great. Good news. Thank you. Are there anyone else have any questions about funding? Because I want to move next to talk about zoning. We have a zoning article that we wanted to talk about. I checked the state legislature's website regularly, if not frequently, and there's no new information that's being that posted about what the status of Concord's home rule petitions are. Of course, the big news, really, the context that the city of Boston, that the city council yesterday approved filing Mayor Wu's proposal, similar proposal for a real estate transfer fee. There was a big write-up about it in the Globe today, and certainly it's going to be a test. I take it as, as a good thing. My hope is that it doesn't take all the oxygen out of the room that Boston is doing, but rather it might be, to use a different analogy, the rising tide might lift all boats. So if it goes forward for the city, perhaps it might also go forward for if not the whole state, but for the handful of the 7 or 8 other communities, including Concord, that have also filed home rule legislation. So we'll see. Stay tuned. It's a big issue. All right.
Keith,
Yes.
I agree with you. It's still hard to know the outcome, but of all this and the impact of all this. But, you know, given the momentum now from Mass General and other health organizations coming on board, and now this, at least it can't be ignored.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as though we're even in requesting funds from the select board or of town meeting in the interim, it's not as though there isn't some significant activity happening in the background that could change what the long term looks like or how soon we reach there. It's not as though it's silence and there's no hope of a dedicated funding source. So hopefully that will, if that's the context, then getting interim funding in the meantime might not be seen as such an onerous thing and not necessarily a long-term commitment. So that's great. Well, thank you. Shall we move to zoning? Last week we took a position with some comments on Article 33, the Thorough Depot zoning district, and adopted some comments, which I haven't sent in yet because I wanted to wait till after today, and then the planning board has its public hearing a week from tonight, I believe. So for today, we're taking up Article 35, which is a citizen's petition. And Rich had drafted some comments, which were in your packet. So Rich, do you want to walk us through?
Yeah,
through
sure. I mean, what this does is it raises the percentage of open space in a planned residential development that has to be upland. And the net effect of that, if I'm doing all the simultaneous things in my head, is that you're going to be able to build fewer units on any given site because you've got to dedicate more. You can't build on the wetlands, and you got to dedicate more of the upland to open space. And since open space does not only excludes houses and roads, but whatever lawn, garden, et cetera, is pertinent to the units, it raises the land cost per unit. And so I think, I don't see any evidence that there's been any environmental disasters associated with the current guidelines. And I would just say we ought to keep them and, keep trying to build, because the net effect of higher land costs per unit is that there's going to be even less chance to buy units, or even potentially for it to be big enough to be required to offer affordable units. So anyhow, and the developer always has the option of just saying, okay, well, 1 acre zoning, I can build, six McMansions on these 6 acres. So that's why I drafted the statement I did.
Thanks, Rich. Are there questions or comments on what Rich has drafted for us?
So could someone just refresh my memory? Was this in response to something that's already being talked about at the planning board?
I'm not sure. It's a citizen petition. I think it may even have come out of the 1440 Main Street fiasco, but I'm not sure. But of course, Main Street's, that developer is now just trying to build the number of units he can get by right. So I don't know quite where it came from unless it's that. Mike, do you know?
No, I don't have any more information. I suspect you're probably right, though, Rich.
Okay. So the reference anyway is Article 35. Yeah, okay.
So what are your thoughts? I appreciate Rich preparing these draft comments for our consideration. When we were discussing Article 33, which was the last time, which was the planning board's proposed zoning amendment regarding Thorough Depot, we did not take a position on that article. We didn't say we're in favor or opposed to that article, although we did say that we had certain comments about it, particularly the inclusionary zoning aspects of it and so on. This proposes that we specifically are opposed to Article 33 and has comments that Rich has drafted in support of that position. Are we okay with that that approach? I see Mike turned his mic on. Mike turned his mic on.
Yeah, I turned it on my, yeah, I think so. It just will have the impact of driving the costs up, which I think are really difficult for us already, and this certainly would just make matters worse.
Thanks, Mike. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I think the difference with the Thorough Depot is we can support the concepts in Thorough Depot, mixed use and the funding mechanism that would generate funds from, the requirement for partial units without having to get into the weeds about, massing and maximum height with a special permit. And so here, I think we just have to say, it's not a good idea because it's going to the extent anybody builds, it's going to raise costs. Or potentially discourage people from considering PRDs, which is, one of the few ways we can get scatter site housing.
Right. So looking back at our motion from last week, the motion was to authorize the chair to offer comments as drafted on behalf of the trust regarding the town meeting article for the planning board's public hearing. Would we want a similar motion now? And then the motion themselves says that we're opposed. Is that so? Maybe our motion here would simply refer to Article 35 instead of Article 33, if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I think, the question is anybody at all uncomfortable with that statement I drafted? But I think a motion to say, to oppose for the reasons contained in that statement is fine. I would propose that.
If that was a motion, I'll second it.
Sorry, I wasn't clear, Michael.
So motion by Rich, second by Mike.
So, yeah, okay, is discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, so, what Rich has drafted certainly makes sense to me. I guess, since it directly relates to Article 35, my hesitation right now in taking a position on this right now is I almost feel like I need to have hear what the further discussion is on this. And we still have time to take a position on this after it's discussed at the public hearing.
Sure. I mean, I want us to take a position before town meeting, but if you want to suggest we just table this motion until after the zoning board hearing, that's fine.
I'm wondering if procedurally we would want to maybe just take out statements of that says we're in opposition, but instead I think it would be important for the comments to be part of the record, I mean, the planning board is having a public hearing. After they close the public hearing, there's, our ability to submit comments to them has gone by. So
They
maybe,
were concerned about as opposed to opposed. That might be a way to,
yeah, it is concern. All right, so.
I mean, ultimately, I would like to oppose it, but
Right.
the choreography here, I defer to others.
I think it would accomplish I think it would accomplish an important purpose of getting comments to the planning board while still reserving, hearing what does the proponent say about the article? Are we missing something?
Sure.
And maybe,
I think that's a
maybe
good path
maybe
forward.
in the point, it could be that, as Linda suggested, could say the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust wishes to state its concerns about Article 35. Is that
Sure.
wishes to state its concerns?
I would sort of state it as sort of, while the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust has not yet taken a position on this article, we would like to submit these concerns. Let them know we haven't yet taken a position.
Okay, well, the trust has not yet taken a position about this article. We do want to about Article 35. The trust does wish to share its concerns and share its concern that it will make it more difficult and more costly, and then pick up the language from there.
Sure.
Okay. All right, I'm trying to see at the end.
Rich, does that help at least put a stake in the ground?
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I'm hoping the Housing Foundation will just come out against it, but our meetings after the planning board meeting, or after that meeting next Tuesday. So, no, I mean, as long as we can take a position on it before town meeting, I'm not worried.
Okay. All right, so Rich, do you want to be the maker of the motion to?
Yeah, sure. I'll try. Mike can probably correct me, but I move that the trust submit to the zoning board its concerns about the passage of town meeting warrant article 35 as stated in the material prepared.
I'm going to offer an alternative language just to
Sure.
parrot. I'm going to parrot the motion you made a week ago for the other article, and so it would read that Rich made a motion to authorize the chair to offer comments as drafted on behalf of the trust regarding 2022 annual town meeting Article 35 for the planning board's March 8th public hearing on proposed zoning articles, and then it's incorporating by reference the comments that we've just agreed to.
Gladly accepted.
Okay. And is that a second, Mike?
It is.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. As previously stated, is there further discussion or ready for a vote? Okay, so let's do a roll call. Linda,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
Harry,
I,
Keith, aye. All right, so that passes unanimously. And thanks all for the discussion. It's a good one to have. And thanks, Rich, for drafting this and bringing this to our attention in the first place. Next item is use of trust funds, for which we've had one purpose this year, Assabet River Bluff. I was able, as I mentioned earlier, I was able to have a brief interaction with CHDC Chair Lee Smith earlier today, that it now anticipates that the purchase and sale agreement will be finalized and ready for execution in about another week or so, and believe that the final version was going to be reviewed by town council. So it sounds like we're getting closer to that happening. So and that's all the information I have about that subject. All right, next item is public comment. See a couple of folks on the call with us. Is there any public comment today? All right, thanks for joining us. Next item is future meetings, and I just want to run through that we do have. We don't actually have a date for our next meeting. We don't. We've been meeting weekly. I don't suggest that we continue with that, but would certainly entertain a discussion about when do you think we should schedule our next meeting for. It's we could meet next Thursday. We could meet in 2 weeks, although that thinking that might be. Look at my calendar.
Keith, my thought would be to tentatively put a meeting on the calendar for next week in
Okay.
case there are concerns with the guidelines as presented to the select board. If the select board accepts our guidelines, I would say then we don't need to meet for another week.
Are folks okay with that approach next Thursday, the 10th? Yeah, I'm thinking if we said 2 weeks from now, then I don't know how many people we lose for evacuation day, but or how many of you have to go to South Boston on March 17th, but.
He's the only one here with an obviously Irish name. It's not a problem.
Okay. I had, there were some meetings that some of the boards that I've worked for over the years, it was not a date we could meet.
Really?
So,
For the record, I'm almost 100% Irish. I can't be held responsible for my married last name. So.
funny. Yeah, the closest I come to that is my wife is 100% Irish, and I don't have an Irish last name. But when I met then Senate President Bill Bulger at a signing at a book signing event in Hyannis years ago, I asked him, and he signed it. He signed my book, my copy of his book, to another father of Irish daughters. So, so there you go. All right, so we'll do it on the 10th.
So Keith, can you just check in that this time frame is works for everybody?
Yeah. Just can everyone do 1:30 next Thursday, March 10th?
That's fine.
Yeah, Keith, with the only caveat that my son's still in the ICU and I may have to beg off at the last minute. But
Okay. I'm so sorry to hear that, and we're wishing the best for him and for your family, Rich. Thanks for letting us know. Other,
So this is tentative date, and then we'll, as Rich's suggestion, we'll cancel if we don't need to follow up with the select board meeting, right?
right, tentative date. If we need to follow up, I can go ahead and post an agenda just to cover that and then cancel it if we don't need to meet. Great. Other meetings, there's a whole bunch that are important to us, starting with tonight at 7 o'clock, the Finance Committee's public hearing on financial articles. So I'll be on that call along with Linda and lots of other folks. And then on Monday, March 7th, we're meeting with the Select Board to discuss the trust guidelines. Next Thursday, March 8th, is the Planning Board's public hearing on zoning articles.
That's Tuesday. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tuesday. Yeah, I said Thursday. Yeah, Tuesday, March 8th, right. Because that's a busy week. That's Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, March 9th at 4 p.m. is the quarterly Concord Housing Roundtable, and this time featuring the kickoff for the Housing Production Plan update. So that's a very important meeting, and I'll come back to it in a minute because Liz Rust has asked each of the housing stakeholder groups to indicate one or two of their committee members who would want to serve on whatever working group. I don't think they're calling it a steering committee because they'd have to post those meetings, but I was looking for representation from a couple of groups, or a couple of members of each of the groups. I'll get back to that in just a minute. After that meeting on March 9th, the Finance Committee will have a meeting on Thursday, March 24th to discuss the trust guidelines. So that's what our schedule looks like coming up. With respect to two members of this group working on the housing production plan update, I had a thought that since the Concord Housing Foundation is another one of the groups that gets to have a couple of members, that maybe Rich could go there in capacity as representing the foundation.
Probably will.
And that and I want to say I'd be very interested in being one of this group's representatives, but also wanted to hear from others who would like to be involved. Mike, I saw your.
I would like to be involved.
And I'm guessing that the other two remaining members of our committee have standing to be there on their own if they wish. So Linda is a select board member and liaison to everything housing, and Carrie as an interim town manager. So so would it work for all if maybe Mike and I if we get back to Liz and say Mike and I will be the rep to the extent you need them, that we'll be there on behalf of the trust, and knowing that Rich will be there on behalf of the foundation, and one way or another, Liz is going to, Liz might just see all five of us, so wearing different hats.
So one of the emails I saw yesterday, I mean, it's always good to have all of you involved. One of the emails I saw yesterday about this said one of two, and I didn't know if it was going to be from each of the housing groups. And I didn't know if that was a typo or if that really was what they intended.
Yeah, I read it as a typo because we had initially in the initial invitation that went out, or email that announced the housing production plan update, it said one or two. So I took that as a
typo. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought I'd feel that I'd get back to Liz and say we've got two from here. So are we okay with the consensus here? Does anyone feel that we need a motion to designate Mike and me. I just assume not because it's almost, I know that the select board was looking at not creating another committee. I'm not sure that they've, in doing this, that they found a way not to have to post the meeting, so for whatever this is. But we'll see how that goes. In fact, the event that's on March 9th is posted. It's posted as a housing roundtable and housing kickoff, and just from my perspective, I think the more that the group that's overseeing the housing production plan is meeting in a format that where anyone who's interested can observe the proceedings would be a good way to be involved. But so great. All right. So well, I'll just reflect in the minutes the consensus that Mike and Keith would represent the trust at the housing production plan in the housing production plan update process. And dare I say, and we'll report back to the full group periodically on what's going on, so that we can have discussion here as well. All right, last thing I wanted to mention in terms of upcoming meetings, and it's not posted meetings of our group, but it's posted meetings of other groups where where the topic will be us. That I had specifically, I've been invited to speak on Concord's establishment of the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust at a couple of upcoming events. One is with the Lexington Affordable Housing Trust Study Committee, which has a meeting on March 23rd. That'll be on Zoom, 4 o'clock, Wednesday, March 23rd. And they've invited me to come and talk about setting up affordable housing trusts, lessons learned. And I said, well, happy to talk about Concord, and I can also talk about Littleton and being on the other side of the trust table on Nantucket, and just be a resource for them. So I was happy to do that. It's a public meeting, and will be posted on Zoom. The other is part of a series that the Massachusetts Housing Partnership is conducting during the month of March, that for I think 4 successive Wednesdays, starting next Wednesday, March 9th, they have a noontime series on municipal affordable housing trusts and community preservation committees. And there was to have been an in-person workshop on that topic months ago. I think it might have even been pre-COVID, and the way they're offering it instead is in a series of workshops. Liz Rust from the Regional Housing Services Office will be talking at the very first one on March 9th. She's on a panel that time. I've been invited to a panel on the 16th to talk about helping multiple housing entities work collaboratively. There's one on the 23rd, which actually topic that I'm very interested in, and it is how you can use the CPA fund for borrowing. So they're going to be talking about that topic. And then I think the last of the 4 sessions is sort of a primer, Municipal Affordable Housing Trust 101. So it's some interesting resources for those who are interested. And happy to help out. MHP has been a great assistance to us in getting started. We brought them in for the Affordable Housing Trust Study Committee, And they've been a great source of information for us as we've gotten up and running. So is there anything else that we need to discuss today? I think we've come to the end of the agenda. And if not, ready for a motion.
Keith, I noted that Carlin Reed came on after we had our public comment session. I don't know if she had anything she wanted to say, but.
Hi, Carl.
Thank you, Michael. Carlin Reed, 83 Ritson. My apologies for missing most of the meeting. I look forward to looking at the video so I can get caught up. I think you guys are doing a great job, so thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you. Thanks, Carlin. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Second,
Motion by Mike, seconded by Rich. Thanks, everyone. We'll take a roll call vote on the motion. Linda,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Rich,
aye.
Harry,
Aye.
and Keith, aye. So we are adjourned at 2:21 PM, which is a new record. So
See all of you tonight.
thanks all. Yeah, see you tonight. Thanks all. Thanks for your great work. Bye.
Thanks, Keith. So long.
Thank